YouTube can be a huge waste of money if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, I've seen it firsthand when I was first starting within YouTube. I did spend about 10K in literally the blink of an eye. It's one of those ad areas that can take a lot of spend and give zero return. So I think users just need to know exactly how to run YouTube to be successful.
Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to Growth Mentors, the podcast where we share snackable growth hacks, strategies, and best practices in how to drive maximum marketing impact and grow your bottom line. I'm your host, Matt LeBlanc, and today we will be talking about YouTube, a formula for scale and success, with my friend, Eric Herzog, an acquisition manager at Jump 450. How you doing, Eric?
Great, Matt. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you. Eric, why don't we just start off with a little bit of your background in YouTube? Where have you gained all of this knowledge and expertise that you're going to be sharing with us?
Yeah, definitely. So just want to start out with saying that YouTube is hands down my favorite channel within Google Ads to run. I think there's so much creative freedom. There's so many things to test. It's such a huge ecosystem to test into. And I think it is a great opportunity for businesses to really grow. In terms of my experience with YouTube, I have a ton of experience running YouTube for a number of different clients across different verticals, trying to achieve different goals on YouTube, brand awareness to driving direct purchases. But I think my most notable achievement on YouTube is taking a brand from spending about $50 a day to almost 10K a day without really impacting business efficiency targets. So have a lot of experience. And, you asked where I got all this experience, and really just from hands-on experience, doing it myself, learning from coworkers, but really just being within the platform, understanding how the YouTube ad ecosystem really works, and, a lot of failures and a lot of successes as well.
Excellent, Eric. You are the perfect Sherpa to be leading us up this mountain. So why don't we just jump right into it? Why is this important for people to hear about? Who should be listening to this episode?
Yeah, so this is important for anybody who's currently running on YouTube or wants to run ads on YouTube. And I think it's going to be really beneficial for those businesses to hear, because YouTube can be a huge waste of money if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, I've seen it firsthand when I was first starting within YouTube. I did spend about 10K in literally the blink of an eye. It's one of those ad areas that can take a lot of spend and give zero return. So I think users just need to know exactly how to run YouTube to be successful.
Absolutely. A lot of people, I think, wasting a lot of money running on YouTube because they're just not educated in how to really optimize there. So Eric, what are most buyers getting wrong when running ads on YouTube?
I think the biggest thing that people get wrong with YouTube is that they're not testing enough. When I say testing enough, that's testing enough creative, testing enough audiences, testing enough settings within the YouTube campaigns, testing enough creative or campaign types, bid strategies. I mean, there are so many different components to YouTube to test through, and I just don't think people are really digging into the weeds enough and testing all those different components. I think the biggest thing that people really miss as well is that they let their own ego, or they think something's going to work, right? And so they're really glued to that. And I think they get that kind of misconception wrong, and they're trying to get things to work that they want to work, rather than just letting the data speak for itself and just doing what the data says they should. So people don't cut quickly enough, they don't test enough components, and that ultimately just leads to poor performance across YouTube.
Exactly. It's like anything else, right? It is our ego that keeps us running those tests, that keeps you thinking like what you believe in something so strongly that if I just keep doing this, it's going to work. And the reality is,
the data.
Right, exactly. And it's like, no, follow the data. And also, because YouTube is sort of so flush with content, you don't need to test that long on YouTube to really see the impact of what you're doing. You give it 2 or 3 days, and if it's not working, then you shift to something else, but turn off those ads that aren't working.
Exactly. Or, maybe the creative is working, but you're not targeting the right audience. Or maybe you have some weird setting in the back end of the campaigns that's preventing delivery, or just making things not perform how you want. So I think the breadth of everything within YouTube ads and campaign setup there's just so much to go into, and I don't think people really get into it enough, and they also don't cut tests quickly enough.
Yeah, so I think that it's really what it kind of comes down to is sort of a lack of education and experience that sort of really affect the performance of a lot of teams that we come across. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Excellent. So just digging into the weeds a little bit here, I think creative is probably a great place for us to start. Maybe you can just talk to us a little bit about creative strategy. We could talk through what creative works on YouTube, what maybe doesn't work on YouTube, or, what to think about when choosing the creative that you're going to run.
Yeah, no, all great topics. So I think one thing that has been really beneficial for me and our clients here in the success of YouTube when it comes to creative is starting with big swings. So what I mean by that is taking two wildly different concepts, maybe a high production value style video that's a little more brand focused, very clean, very crisp, and then testing that against a UGC concept or something that somebody has just taken with their iPhone unboxing a product. So those are like two wildly different video types, and you run those against each other. I think that gives advertisers the most power within YouTube because you're testing like two completely different ends of the spectrum. You can understand what type of creative works, because I think another thing that advertisers need to think about is that not every single type of creative is going to work for every single type of brand. So that's why you start with these widely different tests. You kind of get a gauge of what's going to drive better performance, whether that be just, more engagement with the videos, or if it is actually conversions that type of creative is driving. And then from there, you kind of whittle it down. And then you're like, okay, we see that the unboxing, like UGC TikTok native style video works really well, right?
Yep.
Then from there, it's like, okay, now let's start dissecting the components of the ad. What's the hook that we started with? What's the end card? What is like the actual meat of the video? And then that's where you can start tinkering with the actual videos, start coming up with iterations, testing those against each other. But you can't really get to that point unless you start with those big swings to begin with. Because let's say you just start with, you're like, and again, this kind of goes back to that ego situation. It's like some advertisers like, I know UGC is going to be the best thing for this brand on YouTube. And they go right in UGC and they're testing all these different iterations, but it's all within that frame of UGC and nothing's working. It's like, because you didn't start wide enough. So I think that is really like the biggest thing when it comes to creative is you start like this and then get your way all the way down, because then you get a sense of like what type of creative resonates with your brand, your target audience, what kind of videos do they actually like? And then you can start really iterating, tinkering with those different like DNA sequences, if you will, of the video, and ultimately find what's going to drive performance for your business.
Exactly. I love that we're talking about the ego so much so quickly, because it really is so relevant here, right? It's like, I think what you said was, you've got a brand and they're like, UGC is the thing that works, said no brand team ever, yeah. Right? They're like, what's going to work is the really perfect, polished version of our brand that I came up with in my room, yeah. And I've been pretty stoked on for like 2 weeks. So we're just going to run that. Let's keep working our way down here. Like I say, I know we've got some examples. Do you want to take it away there?
Yeah, definitely. So I think some of the topics or just creative concepts that we see work really well are VSLs, so video sales letters. I think that works though for a very specific type of business. We usually see that work better for like a high ticket product. We've seen that work well for courses or clients within the financial space that do actually, the sale of their product or the adoption of their product requires a lot more education and information for that end user. That's not going to come from, hey, buy, from a 15-second TikTok style looking ad. So that's really something that we've seen work well, but it has to also be, going back to that concept of not every creative is going to work. Every creative type is going to work for every business type. So it really is just understanding kind of like your overall business, your product, your service, whatever it may be, how high ticket of a product or service is that? How much education is that really going to require? And then kind of building the creative that helps educate users, that helps carry users through their journey, and ultimately, getting to that point where like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And you can do all that through YouTube.
Just before we move on from VSLs, I feel like here's a pro tip. When testing VSLs, go after some of those length tests early, right? Because I think that people also get this idea sort of locked in their head of the length of video or the length of content that is appropriate to be running. When in reality, I feel like for VSLs, we've seen on many occasions that you can just extend that video out. And particularly for like maybe an older demographic, right? Mm-hmm. And, if you can make that longer version perform, people are so much more qualified.
Totally. And I think one other thing that we need to address for VSLs or more, for some of this longer form content for higher ticket price point products, things like that, is you need to lead with a promise. I think that's another big thing that advertisers don't get right within YouTube is they try talking about, the benefits of their product or, some highlights, things like that. At the end of the day, these users on YouTube, they have such a short attention span. And I mean, a lot of the YouTube ads, you've seen them, I've seen them, you get 5 seconds to get your point across before somebody can skip. So within that first 5 seconds, especially for something like a VSL, for a higher price point item, lead with that promise. What's in it for the end user? Because at the end of the day, do they really care about, how acclaimed the product is or, what it's really, all these different benefits or features? Not really. They care what it's going to do for them. So lead with that strong promise. This will get you X. Anytime you can lead with financials, hard numbers, things like that really capture that user, get them into, watching the video, and then that's half the battle right there.
Right. They will care about the social proof. They'll care about the value props after they hear the promise. Exactly. Right.
What's in it for them? Totally.
What am I in this for? Eric, I don't want to rush us along too quickly, but I feel like something that I really wanted to touch on in this creative section is relevant to a lot of channels that you might be running on Facebook and Instagram, what have you. But I feel like particularly relevant in YouTube is talking about native feeling concepts, native feeling creative, right?
I'm so happy you brought that up.
The creative on YouTube is different than the creative that you're going to see on Facebook or across other platforms. A lot of it is a bit more elevated or vloggy, or, you have people with their own talk shows on YouTube, right? So these are all such relevant concepts and sort of creative areas that you can play in. It's in my mind, it's really about sort of finding out what your demographic watches on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then start with those concepts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's something that we've seen working really well recently, especially for certain types of products, is that podcast style of video, because we've seen that work really well for like supplements or things in the health and wellness space, because you bring on an expert, you talk to them about the benefits, and it feels like a native podcast that you're watching, right? It doesn't feel like you're getting sold as, somebody who would be into the health and wellness space or supplements or something like that. You're going to be watching content on YouTube that is similar to that. You're listening to experts talk. You're getting the data behind it, things like that. That's, I think, what we're trying to do here as well with YouTube ads, is make them feel like the user is still, even if they're not going to buy directly from that ad, they're still getting some value. So that's, I think, really important to keep in mind when you're trying to do that native style content, is make it actually something that your users would want to watch, because ultimately you're trying to build up this audience, provide value to them. And then when they are ready to buy, or they're looking to switch supplements, or, they need a new workout regimen, whatever it may be, they see you as a credible source in the industry, and they can come straight to your brand.
Absolutely. So podcasts are super relevant and feel very meta in this conversation.
Yes,
but just to sort of swing through a couple of other kind of very popular concepts, I feel like, that we see on YouTube: man on the street, challenge videos, prank videos, if that's something that your brand could play in, straight to camera stuff, like a vlog style. So popular on YouTube. A vlog style can be really effective. Just a little example of why you need to sort of know your audience, or how that can affect how well your creative concept is going to perform. So I've run a vlog style with a couple of different clients. In one case, I was running vlog style with a fintech brand, and it was a top performer. Went really, really well. Was sort of living at the top of the pile over the course of months. I also ran a vlog style with a real estate brand, and we suffered through iteration after iteration of these.
I remember that. I was part of
that. Yes, of these vlogs. And I think that anecdotally, I think that the difference in those two are the fintech brand had a younger demographic, right? So vlogs are maybe something that their users are more used to watching on YouTube, whereas the real estate brand had an older demographic. And so a vlog is not something that they would stop on. I think something else that really kind of affected these two examples were the fintech brand really embraced the style of the vlog and this sort of casual, intimate kind of feeling in the way that they were like talking, whereas the real estate brand wanted to keep it a lot more formal and educational. Educational is not bad, but it felt formal and informative. It felt like an ad, So I think that is just a really kind of perfect balance to talk about playing with. It's like you've got the same concept on both sides here, but it really is about how well, it's about knowing your audience, but it's also about how well you execute that concept. Are you really embracing the things that people like about that kind of content? Or are you just trying to sort of use that concept as a cloak for your sales pitch? People are going to see through that.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I feel like, especially with today's day and age, and there's so much content and there's so many people trying to go viral or whatever it may be, users are going to see right through that if you're not genuine. So I think that's another thing too that I really like that you brought up is like actually doing it for the enjoyment of it, for like trying to provide that value rather than just using it as like, oh, hey, maybe we've seen this work in the past. Let's give it a try. I think that's a huge thing too that would really benefit people is like, just be genuine in it. Like go all in, feel like you are providing value to your audience. And I think, the benefits will come.
Let's charge on. Eric, anything else in the creative section that we feel like is really, really important for us to touch on here?
I think one thing that would be helpful is for people to understand where they can actually go to find creative inspiration and ideas. We're over here. We've been in advertising. I've been in advertising for years. You've been in advertising on the creative side of things. So like, I think part of that we're accustomed to just being immersed in it and we know where to go for ideas or how to find ideas. But I think what would be really valuable is for people who are just starting out and they want to understand like what type of creative options there even are available. So some of the things that we do here internally at Jump, or just like even on a personal level, when coming up with creative, is actually going straight to the source. So all ad platforms do have like an ad library of sorts. I know it's available on Meta. Google has it as well. And I think that's a great place for brands to go to see what other brands that are in the similar vertical as them and just kind of see like what's out there. Because then that is always used as a great jumping off point. It's like, oh, this is really cool. This, this resonates with our brand. Like I can totally see us doing something like that. Everybody gets fired up. And then you have all these new ideas, because I think what's challenging is, like we've said multiple times, there's so much content on YouTube and there's like, there's just so much stuff out there that can be really overwhelming. And also you get kind of that like paralysis of like, oh, there's too many things. I don't know what to do. I think all it really takes is one or two cool ideas that pop, and then you can be off to the races. So like we said, Facebook ad library, Google ad libraries. Also another one, VidTow, is one that I like to go to. That's directly for YouTube. So you can see what other brands are doing. You can see which videos are like crushing it, how much they're spending, things like that. So VidTow is a great resource as well. But then another one that I think is almost overlooked as well is like, go scroll through YouTube. Like YouTube Shorts is huge. Go see what type of content is out there. You're bound to get some ads, or even, see what type of organic content people are posting and how you could reverse engineer that or spin that to be an ad. So I think those are some really valuable jumping off points for people to just get the creative juices flowing.
Yeah, just one more strategy to sort of piggyback on there. Go into incognito mode on your YouTube browser, right? Your personal algorithm is not affecting the search at all. And type in some of your main keywords, right? Because YouTube being, I think the second largest
search engine, yeah,
in the world, right? So type in some of your keywords and see what comes up. Hopefully what you're going to get is some of the influencers that are in your space, right? Get a list going of, I don't know, 3, 5, 10 of the biggest influencers that sort of play in your space. Look at the content that they're making. That is a great place to start with in sort of thinking about native feeling concepts or really any concepts. It's looking at ads is great and always helpful, but looking at organic content from people in your niche is going to give you the edge.
One thing that I want to add on that, I actually just saw this article in Vogue about how Gen Z is kind of completely disrupted that old marketing funnel, especially, that we see on YouTube: awareness, consideration, purchase. Gen Z doesn't do that. They want that organic feeling content. They want that value. And I think what you just said there too about like, go and see what current, top influencers are doing on YouTube, because they're the ones building a brand. They're the ones connecting with that target audience. And you want to mimic that, that look and feel and that, I guess, genuine component of the content. You don't want it to just be ads. Younger generations are going to see right through that. And I think it does come down to, just like building and nurturing that audience, or not that audience, building and nurturing that community through your creative. And then that's really going to help, brands take it to the next level when it comes to advertising on YouTube from that creative standpoint.
Definitely, particularly with younger generations and, sort of nodding to your audience and letting them know that like you get it and you're not like coming at them with an offer from this like very stodgy or formal feeling. And to that point, it just goes back to what you said before about the audience that you're speaking to. The creative that you're making needs to resonate with the audience, which really takes us into targeting your audience, right? Eric, I know that you've got some sort of more technical advice in this area if you want to kick us off.
Definitely. So, like you brought up at the beginning of the show, YouTube, our formula for success, it really is 3 parts. Creative being the most important, but you need to know who are you showing these ads to, right? You need to understand your targeting. So one thing that I've been doing for a lot of my clients that's been super impactful in terms of just like scaling YouTube, getting us supercharging our YouTube campaigns, is using our own customer list to leverage the audience insight data within Google to understand which audiences these customers belong to. So how you technically do this, you go into your Google Ad account, go to Audience Manager. From there, you go to Audience Insight Data, and you can select, it'll give you options of which audiences to analyze. You select a customer list. The reason we select customer lists is because they're customers. So they are the most valuable audience within your Google Ad account. Once you select that customer list, it'll actually show you all of the in-market and affinity audiences that your customers belong to. It'll say which audiences index really highly, and this is a gold mine of finding those potentially high converting audiences across YouTube. What we like to do then is just compile that list, look for those high indexing in-market affinity audiences. From there, we have our list. We go build out 2 separate campaigns. We do one for those in-market audiences, one for the affinity audiences. And that's really how we kind of supercharge growth on YouTube, is we've gone straight to the source of our customers and then kind of dissected who our customers are, what audiences they belong to. And then now we're just targeting those audiences directly on YouTube. This has been huge. I think I've said that a couple times. Huge for just helping us grow on YouTube. Because it's not only limiting ourselves to targeting our customers and trying to do retention or anything, but it does get us into a much bigger pool of users to target, because we know our customers belong to these specific audiences. And so that just gives us an edge on the competition, I think.
Eric, why don't you give us your example? I know that you worked with a brand where you found some really relevant users, like in a different area than you were expecting.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. So we have a current client that we're working with that has really two main cohorts of customers. They work with trade users, so that's like architects, contractors, construction workers, things like that. And then they also do a full direct-to-consumer side of their business. And so what we're looking at is we're looking at the customer list built up of these trade users, and the audiences that they were made up of was like home decor, DIY, construction, things that are very relevant to the actual trade audiences themselves. When we looked at the customer list for the consumer users, we still saw some of those. We saw home decor, home goods, home and garden, whatever, those types of things. But we also saw what I'm calling these like complementary audiences of trips to France, trips to Italy, like luxury shoppers. Because the way we're looking at this is these trade users, they're potentially using their work emails when they're browsing through Google. That's why, everything within their work Google account is all focused on the work, right? Whereas the consumers, they're shopping for these luxury goods, but they're also, using their Google account to do things for their personal life. So if it is a more luxury brand, the type of consumer, they're going to be doing these more luxurious trips to France, to Italy. They're going to be bucketed in that luxury shopper audience. And so what we do is we take that kind of like secondary audience or complementary audience, and we target there because, let's say, for example, you are a hair care brand, right? And, your gut instinct for targeting is like, oh, we're going to target in market for hair care. How many other hair care brands are targeting that same audience? All of them are, right? So what we like to do is we like to take it one step deeper and see like, okay, obviously hair care is extremely relevant, but what else do our users like? And that's where we can dig into that audience insight data, and we say, we can find that like, oh, they also care about the environment. So then we can develop creative around how our product is green and good for the environment, and we can target these audiences like green living enthusiasts, something like that, with creative that speaks directly to that, but it also is relevant to our brand. So I think that's another way that people can really try and tap into new audiences, is look for those complements. It kind of comes with like one of my first ever jobs within marketing right out of college was just marketing strategy. And a lot of it was all about persona development. And I think that's really played a big role just throughout my entire like paid media career, is getting into, understanding who your target persona really is, what makes them tick, what do they like, outside of just that like, gut instinct of like, oh, we sell shampoo, we're going to target hair care, that kind of situation.
Yeah, I think that what you're talking about really feels like that crucial piece that lazy media buyers are missing, right? It's if the whole pack is going after the actual target, you need to be going after those complementary audiences to get that edge over the competition, right? It's like, how do you find new ways to get in touch with the same users, right?
Exactly. And I think that really can just tie back into what we were saying on the creative side of things of not every type of creative is going to work, and you have to really build creative to resonate with those users that you're trying to target. And so that's when it comes down to trying to find that different way to reach the same users through these complementary audiences, or even better, through these complementary audiences with creative that speaks to, that like secondary niche, but is still going to resonate with your user, but is also, genuine with your brand.
Right. Eric, so what about brands that do not have an audience list to put into the platform?
That's a great question. And I think that's where we really go back to, your audience persona strategy, just looking at your brand, who is your target audience? Where do they shop? What do they value? What do they do in their free time? I mean, even going as broad as, what are their demographics, male, female, what age are they? What's their household income? Things like that. And really just crafting that audience or that persona of who you exactly want to target. because from there, then you can start getting into the weeds of all the different Google audiences, trying to understand which ones are going to work well for you. And again, all goes back to testing. Let's get 50 audiences tested into a campaign. Are all of them going to work? No, of course not. But maybe you'll get 2 or 3 that work. But ultimately, what you're doing is you are ultimately driving customers. You're building up that customer list. So then that way, when you get to a certain point, you can start looking at that audience insight data behind your customers. But again, I think people tend to overthink it. Like, if you don't have a customer list, just think about your product. Like, who buys your product? And then almost work backwards from there to then just get an understanding of some different strategies and tactics from an audience targeting perspective. And then just rinse and repeat, go through that process, test, cut, and then eventually you're going to find some winning audiences if you're methodical about, your process for testing through these audiences, cutting, getting the right creative in front of the right users. And then ultimately that's just how you go from spending 10, 50, $100 a day on YouTube to like 10, 20, $30,000 a day on YouTube.
Exactly. Eric said that if you do not have that audience list, figure it out, guys, basically is the advice.
Yeah, you're smart. You're a business owner.
I think it's relevant to just say figure it out, right? Because I think that everything that you just sort of walked us through was like, well, ask yourself, do your due diligence, do the work, right? So ask yourself all the relevant questions. And when you sort of break it down like that, the steps are kind of simple. It's just really, I think, a matter of kind of going through the exercise, right? So if you don't have that audience list yet, don't feel discouraged about that. Go and get it,
Yeah, I mean, that audience list is kind of like, that's like your prize for doing the work up front. Like, you're going to have to build a customer list one way or another. So then once you've put in that legwork, you've done your analysis and whatnot, you build up this customer list, and then Google's like, here you go. Here are the audiences that your customers belong to. Go target them. But I know for a fact all the Google reps I work with have never told me that. I had to kind of find that one on my own. So I'm willing to bet there's a lot of advertisers out there that also don't know that exists. So if you do have customer lists, leverage the audience insight data behind them.
Eric, I'm feeling like there's this like undercurrent theme throughout this whole episode of experience, right? It feels like the thing that is really relevant on YouTube, and also the thing that is holding people back from scaling on YouTube, is either having experience or having a lack of experience, right? And if you have a lack of experience, I'm not saying that to try to discourage anyone by any means. I'm saying, we're sort of detailing out some like really kind of basic steps to just go in and do the work, or get in touch with a group of people who are super experienced and have gone from spending $100 a day to $10,000 a day on YouTube. Eric, let's just spend a little bit of time talking about landing page strategy.
Yeah, definitely.
Super relevant, but we don't need to go. This could be its own episode. In fact, we have done a full episode about landing pages. So landing pages, where you drive traffic matters.
Yeah. I think really what it comes down to for, just high level landing page strategy within YouTube is have a landing page strategy. Make sure that, that landing page you're driving traffic to is focused on a single theme. Some of the things that we work really well, or we see work really well for YouTube specifically, advertorials, like a 10 reasons why, something educational, something informative. You want it to be, don't go straight to the sale. The fact that you've already gotten a user to click through your YouTube ad and get to your website is a huge win. Continue to nurture that. What else is going to help sell them? Build landing pages around that, that single theme. Have that strategy. Once you get users onto this advertorial, this 10 reasons why listicle, something like that, from there, then you can link to a product page or a service page, which gives more direct information about exactly what you're trying to sell. But what we've seen, and I think this goes back to, things that people are just missing when they're running YouTube, is going straight from YouTube ad to a product page, or a YouTube ad straight to, asking for the credit card. Like, whoa, let's pump the brakes a little bit. We need to give you exactly, take me out the dinner first. So that's just, I think, one thing in a nutshell for landing page strategy with YouTube. is to just have more of a strategy for your landing pages rather than just trying to dump users onto a PDP. Or, I mean, the worst thing, in my opinion, that you can do is just drive straight to the homepage. It's so broad. There's so many different things. You really want to give users more information in what they're looking for, but you also want to help guide them to their ultimate goal.
Yeah, you really got to stick that landing. I love what you said about really kind of nurturing that user rather than it's, you can get overly excited really easily and be like, and they click on the ad and then it's going to go right to the product page and they're going to see it and then they're going to buy 100 of them.
Exactly.
And it's like,
yep.
So let's put it all together, Eric. I feel like you've got a super relevant experience that you've actually had where you've taken a lot of these strategies and sort of put them to good use.
So my favorite YouTube experience ever was going through everything we've just gone through. We went through a ton of different creative iterations. I mean, just looking at my sheet of YouTube ads, well, about 216 unique YouTube ads that we ran. We're testing, I don't know, anywhere 2 to 4 different headlines for each ad. We're driving it, we're testing like 2, 3, 4, 5 landing pages. I mean, you can do the math. Like that is a ton of individual YouTube ads that we put out into the ecosystem. Did all of them work? No, of course not. But we did find some winners. We did the same thing with audiences. We ran through a ton of different audiences. We leveraged the audience insight data behind our customer lists. We targeted so many different audiences. And ultimately what we found, we had like 5 solid video concepts that worked in like 3 to 4 really high performing YouTube or audiences on YouTube. And we were able to go from, that $100 a day initially to, at the height, we were spending like $30,000 a day on YouTube through this exact blueprint of creative testing, audience testing. We had very specific and strategic landing pages that we were driving to. And when we put all of that together, we got to a point where we were absolutely crushing it on YouTube.
Excellent. I love that. And so relevant to just sort of like detail out like how you get up to maybe 216, I think was the number you gave ads, it's really just a couple of concepts, right? It's probably 3, 4 concepts, right? And then you've got a handful of different headlines and messaging angles that you're trying on those and different iterations. And pretty soon you've got this really robust batch that you can test through. And I think a lot of people would think, well, God, that's so much. And is it too much? And it really doesn't have to be, because if we go back to sort of the thing that we started with is test fast, fail fast, learn, and then grow from that, right? So
exactly.
Put something on, and Eric, you know better than I do, so hold me to it, but run something, give it 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, you can usually get a good indication if something's going to work or not within a few days. Obviously, spend level is a component there, but Google, if it's a good creative concept and it's going to work, Google will get that in front of the right users, and you'll start to get some indication that is going to be a winning concept. If not, do not feel bad about cutting it early and just moving on to something else. Because what I think the biggest thing within YouTube is being stagnant is really going to be the thing that kills your YouTube campaigns. You want to be dynamic. You want to be testing, but you also want to have ideas and things working that are going to be able to fill in that space once you do cut those components.
Absolutely. Eric, just to, I guess, put you on the spot for a minute, is there a bare minimum dollar amount of spend that you feel like you could put towards an ad and still give it a fair shot for, running after 3 days or so?
I like to tell my clients that you need at least minimum $10,000 investment for YouTube to get a significant test. Because then that way, with that $10,000, you'll be able to test through a lot of different creative, different audiences. Because what I've seen happen in the past too with some old clients at previous jobs, they want to do YouTube, but they like dip their toe in it, don't really give it enough money, don't really generate any quality data, and it's kind of just been a waste. So I do think that 10K minimum is a good starting point for YouTube to be able to get an actual real test on YouTube to understand, what's going to work. Test those widely different concepts. Test, a few audiences that you've done your research and you think that, these could be good audiences. And then again, if they don't work, cut them, test something else. But I think that 10K minimum is really like the baseline for a successful YouTube test.
A totally fair answer. I don't want to hold your feet to the fire too much on this, but I think I'm talking more about like one individual ad.
Oh,
like how little is too little?
I mean, we usually go for like 2 to 3x CPA. So what that means is, let's say our CPA target is $100. If an ad is spent $200 to $300 and hasn't generated at least one purchase, that's a pretty clear indication that that one's not going to be the winner.
Yep. Excellent. And he's got the answer even when you push him for it. Eric, you really are an expert and so much fun to work with on this stuff. Super strategic and also creative. So it's always a good time. But did you have anything else that you wanted to leave us with here? I think maybe some trends that we're seeing in the space, or any forecasts for the future. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think advertisers need to, if you're not already doing it, lead with a mobile first approach. YouTube Shorts is becoming enormous. Like, I think the last data point I saw was like 4 billion views a day on YouTube Shorts, or like something crazy. So just lead with that mobile first strategy. You're going to find so many more users on mobile. Mm-hmm. And I think things are going to get a lot more engaging. Like I foresee mobile creative and mobile ads, especially on YouTube Shorts, they're going to be cool. They're going to be like swipeable or clickable, or there's going to be like some type of engaging component to the ads that will really captivate users, make it a game, really like immerse the user into your brand, into your creative, make it an experience. And I think that's really going to be the future of advertising on YouTube.
Excellent. So this has been Eric Herzog, Acquisition Manager at Jump 450. And if you are listening and you're looking to explode your own social growth, get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And we will be back here next week with more actionable strategies for you to steal from us.